What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Thoughts. I'm Joe Galvez back with another episode of college football. This is for week 6. So there's a lot of things that happened in week 5. We're going to get right into that. We're going to talk about it. Again, a new realignment of the college football AP poll. Now, who's the top 25? Some teams dropped down. A lot of teams stayed in, of course, but a new team went in for sure, and a couple have of course have moved around. So we're gonna talk about that, talk about a couple games, my thoughts and how I thought these teams played and things went like that. And then, close it off like always with closing on the games of week 6 and the top 25 games of week 6 and then how things like that are gonna go. So let's get right into it. Starting off, like always, the announcement of the AP poll for week 6. Top two are the same, like always. Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, both of them at 5-0. And number 3, Texas has kept the spot at number 3 at 5-0 as well. At number 4, Ohio State is 4-0, keeping that number 4 spot. Florida State has kept the number 5 spot with 4-0 as well. Penn State at 6, Washington at 7, Oregon at 8, USC at 9, all from Penn State to USC from the 6 to 9. They're all 5-0 teams. Notre Dame at 10 after the loss to Ohio State last week. They came back and got a win, so now they're 5-1. 11 Alabama with 4-1. Oklahoma at 12. They are 5-0, but they're keeping that 12th seed. Washington State at 13. They're currently 4-0 as well. North Carolina 14 at 4-0. Oregon State at 15 and Ole Miss at 16. Both of them 4-1. University of Miami at 17, 4-0. University of Utah at 18 at 4-1, with Duke right behind at 4-1 as well. We got Kentucky and Missouri, respectively, in that order at 5-0 each. You got Tennessee at 4-1 at 22, LSU at 3-2 at number 23. You got Fresno State at 24 going 5-0, and now the new person in the top 25 right now is Louisville with 5-0, taking that last seed in there. So a lot of changes. Kind of looking back at it, we look back at the AP poll. I mentioned teams that knew Louisville's in there. Kansas got out, and then Florida got out due to their loss, so they're not in there. Rather, it's Kentucky who's in there taking over the spot for Florida. So other than that, everyone else stayed the same. A lot of movements, like we mentioned. Looking back at their games that happened in week 5, Oregon State beat Utah 21-7. Georgia beat Auburn 27-0. Michigan beat Nebraska, which easy win, Big Ten game, 45-7. Texas beating Kansas. The reason why Kansas dropped out of the top 25. The reason why Kansas dropped out of top 25, losing to Texas 40-14. I think it wasn't just that Kansas lost, but it was the way that they lost. It was a conference game, the Big 12 conference game. Texas just showing how dominant they are. So we're going to talk more about that one, but that's the reason why Kansas is out. Penn State, at first, was an early struggle at halftime. They were tied 10-10. Penn State beats Northwestern 41-13. Again, a Big Ten conference game. Washington, a Pac-12 conference game. Washington beats Arizona, the University of Arizona, 31-24. Did seem like not that Washington was struggling, but they didn't kick off the beginning of the game like they did in other games. Of course, the fourth quarter they scored 14 points, but it did take a little minute for them to get those 14. Arguably one of the big games of week 5, USC at Colorado. USC comes with a 7-point win, 48-41. But we'll get deeper into that one when we talk about it. Another Pac-12 game, the third Pac-12 top 25 game. Oregon at Stanford, just delivering the blow, winning big time, 42-6, a back-to-back game that they had kept their opponent at 6 points for Oregon's defense. Notre Dame gets the really clutch. Well, the last play was defensive clutch, but Notre Dame gets the clutch win against Duke, 21-14 by the touchdown. Crazy game. Alabama gets a conference win against Mississippi State, a team that Mississippi State I thought was going to be much better throughout the season. However, they have not been planned out as thoroughly as I thought they should have, especially going 0-3 so far in the SEC. Alabama gets to win 40-17. Ole Miss, crazy comeback win by Ole Miss, beating LSU again, an SEC game, so very important of it. Ole Miss getting to win 55-49, 6-point game. It was a lot back and forth, especially in that fourth quarter. LSU did have I believe it was a 13-point lead. I believe it was 15 point lead into that fourth quarter, and Ole Miss just picked it back up, resulting in 3 and outs and turnovers for LSU. Oklahoma moving up from 14 to 12, continuing their like I say, the teams that they've been playing haven't been that good, so they just continue to look good. But in my opinion, they're not. They haven't played an actual hard team, but they get the win 50-20. Yes, it's noticeable that they're putting up the points, and the defense has been keeping them at a minimum. So that's something to take into account. Tennessee gets a SEC win 41-20 over South Carolina. Oklahoma again getting a big win, a Big 12 win against Iowa State. It's 50-20. So like I said, Oklahoma, to me, they're not good. They haven't proven themselves by playing an actual well-rounded team. But it is noticeable that one, they are scoring high points, and two, the defense has been able to keep them at about an average of maybe 20 points. So that's something that's keeping account why Oklahoma moved up from 14 to 12. Florida losing their spot in the top 25, number 22, because of to the team that they lost to this week, SEC game. They lost to Kentucky 33-14. It was done pretty much by the first quarter, 16-0 in the first quarter, second quarter. Florida gets on the board, but then Kentucky cancels it right out with their own touchdown, as well as they canceled both touchdowns. And the same in the third quarter. Florida gets a touchdown, Kentucky gets a touchdown, and then Kentucky closes it off with a field goal in the fourth quarter while Florida gets nothing. So Kentucky's taking a top 25 spot while Florida's out of it. Missouri getting a win against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, I never thought was going to be a good team this season. I believe I said in the beginning, the first college football podcast episode that I made, is that I didn't think Vanderbilt was going to be that good at all, especially in the SEC. They weren't going to perform in any way. So Missouri gets the win, their first win of the SEC this season, 38-21. And the last game, which I said was going to be a very easy game because Nevada is not good at all. As Nevada's 0-5 and 0-1 in the Mountain West, Fresno State takes a 1-0 lead in the Mountain West, going 5-0. They won against Nevada 27-9. All right. So some of these games that I want to talk about that I thought were the big games of the week. Start off USC Colorado. We'll get right into that. Get into Notre Dame Duke. Some Ole Miss LSU. Maybe a little Oregon Stanford. Not really much to talk about, so we may not even get into that. And a little bit of Oregon State and Utah. But yeah, it's been crazy. If you guys been watching the games, these games have been very intense, very close. And depending who you're watching, it's either high scoring or average scoring or even some low scoring games, but they have been very close. So last week, I did not exactly say who I thought was going to win that game. However, I did mention that first episode that I did that I had USC beating Colorado because this was before knowing how Colorado played the first two games. This was way before I had already had USC beating Colorado. So at the last episode, I did not say who I thought exactly was going to win, but I did say that if Colorado was to beat USC, they'll be placing themselves fairly high in about top 20, top 15, around that area of the top 25 of the AP poll. However, knowing how USC's also been playing, I knew it was going to be very tough. And the whole point of this was both teams was going to be high offensive teams with very low defense. And we saw that pretty much the entire game. I'll start off with USC's defense. USC's defense, although they're not good, USC's defense is still struggling and haven't found their way around. They were able to make the necessary stops needed against this Colorado offense to give USC the lead and to hold that lead. Because I did mention that in the last episode that the winner of the game, it's all going to come down to which defense could make the necessary stops when the time needed it. And USC did it in the first half of the game. The first half of the game, they got an interception, tried to run it back for pick six, but didn't. They ran out of bounds, and then they blocked a punt in which the Colorado kicker, moved to his right side and went and took a little longer to kick it. When he kicked it, it hit the elbow, about the arm of the elbow area of the USC defender, in which USC was got perfect position where the play on Colorado's, I believe, 20-yard line, and able to get a touchdown there. So in that scenario, USC's defense made the necessary stops. Now we still saw that Colorado was able to score in the first half of the game, because it wasn't USC's defense wasn't all perfect. Colorado was able to get 14 points by halftime, while USC was able to get 34 points. So halftime was 34-14. And just to count USC's defense, their secondary, a lot of gaps. There was a lot of opening gaps, a lot of these plays. They figured out that some of these plays, screen pass plays, were working. Some of them, not all of them, or not all of them, but they were working. And then Colorado was able to run for a decent amount. They were able to run the ball through the middle for a bit until USC was able to stop some of them as well. And then adding to it, did not help that Colorado missed a field goal in the first half, in the first drive, as they were unable to get a touchdown. They took it down to the UC sideline, and then the kicker just shanks it. Feely, the kicker of Colorado, shanks it, kicks it far left, and misses it. Eventually, in the second half, USC also misses a field goal, but at the time, not knowing how important, or at the time, that missed field goal by Colorado was much more important than USC, until USC missed theirs. But in that half, so Colorado won. They were not, and the offense was not like playing right. They're not in their headspace. The running game was trying to keep them alive, but the passing game was not working that well until they were able to find a groove. With that first touchdown was a pass. They were finding the open gaps because, again, USC secondary was leaving those gaps open. It was the front four that was really rushing Shedeur Sanders to run out the pocket and having to keep the plays alive, because by the time these plays got open, Shedeur was just feeling the pressure really quick. That's what it was. So USC's defense was doing very well, keeping them, having to force them out and try to keep the play alive, which a lot of times it didn't work out. And then, the turnovers, and well, it was just one interception. Now USC's offense in the first half were playing great. USC's offense looked well, no issues. It looked like they were going to score 60-70 on Colorado's defense, because when USC's offense was playing really great, Caleb Williams is showing why he deserves either to be the front runner, or reason why he's even in the conversation of the Heisman Trophy, but even just being the front runner, like I mentioned, of the Heisman Trophy, winning it back to back. He's playing great. I mean, what more can you ask from keeping plays alive? Even when it was, I believe it was a play, it was like 2nd and 15, and so on, they still get the first down eventually. Caleb Williams completed 30 out of 40 attempts of passes. He threw for 403 yards, averaged about 10 yards. He had 6 touchdowns and 1 interception that came in the second half. Now I'll get to that part. But at the time, going into halftime, he had 3 touchdowns, I believe. He had 3 or 4 touchdowns going into halftime. So he was already leading. He was already doing great. He had 5 carries for 12 yards rushing. So those are just passing. USC's offense, Taj Washington was destroying this Colorado secondary. The secondary defense was almost not there sometimes. Even the run defense was almost not there. In that first half, it almost looked like Colorado defense did not know what to do, did not know what was going on. They just looked lost on the field, pretty much in that first half. It was terrible. Second half, they picked it up a lot. They were able to fix themselves. I don't know what Coach Prime told them, but they were able to fix themselves enough to, one, position themselves better, stand where be where they need to be, mark the man that they needed to mark, make coverage, create plays, even though the ball was thrown into the pocket or the hands of the receiver. They were able to punch it out, so it was incomplete pass. They picked it up so much in the second half. They looked completely different. If Colorado defense played this way in the first half, Colorado probably would have won because it was a 7 point game. They probably would have won. It would have taken out a touchdown, maybe even two, or even converted another turnover. Like I said, Caleb Williams only threw one interception. That was in the second half. Could have been two, but they called a flag. It was a long play. It was I believe it was like a 3rd and 8, something like that. It was like a 3rd and 8. It was something, and Caleb Williams had to run out to the right side looking for his receiver. He throws it to the receiver, and the Colorado corner who was coming in for Shiloh Sanders, because Shiloh Sanders did not play as well as Travis Hunter. The corner that was the second string in for him, pretty much passing interference, jumped right over the USC receiver, but like it was a clear passing interference anyways. So instead of getting that interception, well, he got the interception, but instead of allowing the interception to stand, it was it turned into a PI, and it gave USC 15 yards and got the first down, which led to a touchdown eventually. So that was the mistakes, and again, unable to just read these scenarios at the time and allow these players, just USC was just having their way with this Colorado defense. They were just unable to figure it out in the first half. So the way Colorado played in the second half, being able to figure everything out, read the team, force Caleb to run out and have to make plays, and a lot of times it led to incomplete passes and other stuff like this. To me, Colorado still doesn't have a defense in general. Like, they don't have a strong defense, but it shows that they were able to figure out a way to at least contain USC. You had 34 at the half. I mean, yes, you allowed them to score 14 more points. That's not good, but it's better than allowing them to score another 34. So Colorado still doesn't have a defense, but they were able to contain Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams made some incomplete passes. We saw he had 10 incomplete. One of them was an interception. So prior to that, he only had 9 total incompletes. And most of them pretty much came down to in the second half because of the pressure and the rush of it. But Josh Washington on the receiving end was destroying the Colorado secondary all game, whether it was the first half, second half. He had 8 receptions for 117 yards, one touchdown. The longest was a 71-yard catch. Brandon Rice as well. He had 2 touchdowns, and one of the touchdowns that he got, the play right before, he almost had the touchdown. The ball was placed right in the hands, and the Colorado defender poked it right out. But then the very next play, Caleb Williams looked for him. He ran a route in which he left the defender. I believe he thought he had coverage behind him. He had a safety, and did not. By the time he turned around, Brandon Rice was wide open, gained his second touchdown. He had 5 receptions, 81 yards with 2 touchdowns. Mario Williams was also playing very well. 3 receptions, 53 yards with 1 touchdown. For the rushing, Caleb Williams, like I said, he went for 5 rushes and 12 yards. Austin Jones, and a lot of these players on both sides, Colorado and USC, they were slipping. They were saying the grass was very slippery. Austin Jones only had 3 carries for 6 yards, but Marshawn Lloyd, the main running back for USC, had 13 carries, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, that's very solid. Now, Shedeur Sanders himself going on the other side, because speaking on the USC defense on the second half, USC defense second half did not look as good. They didn't contain Colorado as much as Colorado's defense fixed itself at halftime. So did the offense. The offense started making more plays. They started trying newer plays. The first touchdown that Colorado got, it just coming out of the halftime, was to the tight end, just a screenplay. Throw it. Shedeur threw it to his left side, caught it, screenplay, ran it down. It worked out well, and Colorado seen that this was what's working down. And like I said, the run defense for USC, even in the first half, wasn't too good. Shedeur Sanders ran in for a touchdown. Yeah, that was the second touchdown of the first half of the game entirely for them. But that was the second touchdown for them. And so it in that play, you could see the O-line, the D-line, so, it opens up, Shedeur runs through it, and leaving, you could see 4 players of the secondary just gap in between. And by the time they caught up to him, it was too late. So Shedeur was able to cut that lead in the first half, coming to the second half, giving them momentum. But yeah, the USC defense, as well as they contained Colorado in the first half, second half completely different. Colorado found themselves, found the plays that was working. The issue was that one, they tried a 2 point conversion, and at first it looked like they got it on one of the touchdowns. They tried the 2 point conversion, it didn't work out. Right? And that's the reason why USC had a 34 in the first half instead of 35, because they tried 2 point conversion and it didn't work. Now, same for Colorado, they tried a 2 point conversion. It was caught, but when the refs replayed it, he stepped out of bounds, so it doesn't count. So they were down by one, pretty much canceling out. And then SC in the second half also missed, like I said, missed that field goal, so canceled out from Colorado's first missed field goal. But by the time Colorado started finding the groove and realizing that there's a possibility of winning this, they took too long, especially in that fourth quarter, that last play. Even though they got the touchdown, they took too much time off the clock to get that touchdown to cut the lead to 7. So by the time they gave USC the ball back, I believe it was about a minute and a half left. So roughly a minute and a half, because Colorado started with the ball, I believe, at 9 minutes left in the entire game, and they finally scored at like 2 minute mark, roughly, or the 2 minute mark, I believe. So by the time USC got the ball back, Colorado had no chance of just stopping the US. No chance at all. USC just nailed the ball out. So Colorado just realized offensively everything at the end and all the mistakes that they did in the first half. If just one or two of those first half mistakes were fixed, the game could have been tied, could have gone to overtime, or Colorado could have, just be more time manageable offensively in the second half. Shedeur Sanders had 14 carries, 50 yards, and the one touchdown that he scored. Dylan Edwards had 12 carries, 44 yards. As for receivers, yeah, Omarion Miller, he had 7 receptions, 196 yards, one touchdown. His longest catch was 65-yard catch. He is a freshman. A lot of freshmen are starting to play now for Deion, trying to see who's coming up, who can he trust, even at the young age of freshman. You don't have to be a sophomore, junior, or senior for Deion to play you. You could be a freshman and balling out. Omarion Miller took his opportunity, started balling out. Incredible. He was destroying the USC defense in the second half. Jimmy Horn Jr., 7 receptions, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns by him. Michael Harrison, 6 receptions, 44 yards, around 1 touchdown by him. So just seeing it, I think it was a lot of, for Colorado, a lot of mismanaged on time, a lot of mistakes in the first half, but the second half was mismanaged on time. They could have managed their time much better. They probably would have tied the game. USC, offense perfect in the first half. Second half, defense was bad, but not bad. It wasn't as bad. They were bad to allow Colorado to I think the bad part about USC's defense in the first half was just allowing Shedeur Sanders to get that running touchdown. I think that was the only mistake in that first half. So, although they weren't perfect in that first half, I think they played really good enough just to slow down Colorado, and it shows. It gave them the win. Second half, they were terrible. They were terrible second half. I wouldn't say UC offense was terrible in the second half. I think they were still good. I think in any other game, or just actually even in this game, I think with how their offense played in the second half, they were still gonna win the game, no matter what. It was just that defense that was blowing it for them, where Caleb had to do more in order just to keep USC, offense wasting more time on the field and just keep it going. So that's my take on it. We'll get to the next games a little later and see how I think they're gonna go. Colorado now showing their 2 losses. The next game, seeing how tough it's gonna be, and like we'll talk to the next game. So I'll say my scores and stuff, but how they're gonna play. USC has, in my opinion, another fairly easy game. They're playing University of Arizona, and then they get the hard games. So let's see if USC could go 6-0 and 4-0 in the conference. One thing I want to point out now, kind of moving on from that topic, to add on, we're seeing that although Colorado, yes, got surprisingly 2 wins. Well, two surprising wins in the beginning of the season. The third against Colorado State, they struggled, but they got the win. And then these two losses where they only scored six against Oregon, and now 41 against USC. Like I always talk about the hype and biasy. This is clear that Colorado is just getting the hype from ESPN. Colorado's getting the hype from the TV. Deion Sanders. You see all these celebrities are going to the game, whether they're the opponents, like the USC, they had USC celebrities going to the game. Whether it was the Colorado State game where they had, The Rock going to the game and these other players going to these games. Colorado right now is just getting now. Deion's not, his purpose isn't to get this hype, to get these clicks, to get no. He's just coaching the team. It's ESPN and these media doing it on them, and it's why a lot of other teams don't like Colorado, not because of the team or the players. Or sometimes maybe they talk. Deion says he doesn't talk trash until trash has been talked to him. Kind of like the coach of Oregon when he said, but Oregon was able to back it up and get the win. But my point is that it's ESPN, SportsCenter, and all these media that giving this, Colorado's so good. Colorado's this. Is Colorado winning the college football playoffs? Is Colorado going to be in the Pac-12 championship game? It's all of this that they shouldn't be getting this type of hype because they haven't proven themselves to be. Prior to Deion, Colorado wasn't even a thought for these people. And now because of two really good wins, one really tough win, and two very tough losses, they're still on the Colorado hype train. Now I don't understand why. I think you should really take a look and realize Colorado isn't a top 25 team. Yes, offensively they can be offensive, but defensively, not at all. And because of that, all around together, they're not in the top 25. They're not going to the Pac-12 championship game. They're not doing a lot of these things, and I think they're just hyping up. And a lot of people are going to be disappointed and talk more trash about Colorado, which isn't fair for them because they didn't ask for that. They're just trying to play. So I think ESPN, should really stop that and just stop being like that. Now sticking with the USC, kind of just quick mention about the movement of the rankings with Oregon. So I thought it was very interesting. At first when I looked at it, I was like, But then just kind of thinking about it, I was like, okay, it makes a lot of sense. So last week, USC was at 8, Oregon was at 9, and Utah was at 10, right? But Utah fall back into the top 25 somewhere else. But now speaking on Oregon USC this week, Oregon's at 8 and USC's at 9. Now the switch. At first I was like, really? But then as I was looking, I as a UCLA fan, I don't like USC, but seeing this, at first I thought, I don't know if Oregon should have been moved up over USC. But as I looked a little bit more at it, I understand why Oregon got moved over USC. Now looking at it, I think what takes into account is both teams played Stanford and Colorado, right? So we're seeing how they won those games. The only difference here is that Oregon hasn't played Arizona State while USC has. All right, so taking into account down, but not being taken into account. But I think it's putting it over is one, Oregon kept Colorado at 6 points. And Oregon also kept Stanford at 6 points. Although USC scored 48 points against Colorado, and they scored 56 against Stanford, right? USC allowed 41 from Colorado to be scored on them, and Stanford to score 10. Now, Stanford game scoring 10, that's a pretty good defensive game, right? It's only 10 points, 2 touchdowns, and you win the game, right? Touchdown field goal, you tied the game. So USC did crazy good against that game. But the movement in the rankings I saw was clearly about the defense. So USC has a total of between just those two games, because I think this switch it's very important in just the conference game. It doesn't matter who they played non-conference. USC still has one more non-conference game, which is in 2 weeks against Notre Dame. That's the third one. But prior to that, it doesn't matter who they played. It doesn't matter who Oregon played because they beat a team 81-0. So that doesn't matter. It's the conference games and the two that they played together. So USC in total, the defense has allowed 51 points to be scored on. Now for Oregon, the defense only allowed 6 points for both teams. Against Colorado, it was a touchdown in which they tried a 2-point, didn't convert. It was a rushing touchdown. Against Stanford, it was only 2 field goals that they scored. They allowed only 6 points in both games, means a total of 12. And offensively, Oregon has scored 42 on both games, 42 points, meaning that it's only been meaning that they scored 84 points total. Well, yes, USC has, I believe, 104 total points offensively. Oregon has only 82, but it's clear that the defense is what made the move. And after seeing that, I agree with it. I agree that Oregon should be at that 8, UC should be in the 9, and it's all like it's just coming down to defense. Yes, you scored 100. You have 104 points in just those 2 games offensively, but defensively, you've also allowed 51 points be scored. I mean, while Oregon, yes, Oregon has 84 points offensively, but they're dominating on the defensive end. Offensively, they don't need to score that much to win these games. It's been really clear. They just scoring 42 points because they can, or they choose to go, and they're only allowing 12 points. So the difference in points of favor, points against, how they playing against these 2 teams, because one, Oregon hasn't played Arizona State, so I think if Oregon had played Arizona State right now this time, they would have taken that account also because of how USC played Arizona State, which USC scored. I believe USC scored. Yeah, USC scored 42 points, but also got 28 points scored on. So that's another. So I think that's just a lot of what's taken into account in the movement of it. Just the movement of the realignment and how things are going. So it's really going to come down to the Oregon USC game. If it's kept like that, it's going to come to the Oregon USC game and then USC against Washington if USC wants to be moved up. And it's also the same for Oregon and Washington, which one wants to be moved up to the college football playoffs. Also, depending on how Florida State does and Penn State does. Penn State plays Ohio State and Michigan. Florida State, they just beat Clemson, arguably one of the harder teams in their conference. So Florida State is really the one those teams need to hope on Florida State losing a game or two, which looks very tough for how they've been playing. But another game, like you mentioned, Notre Dame at Duke. Very close game. Didn't think it was going to be that close. This is the second game we see Notre Dame in a very tight, close game. Yes, we saw them lose against Ohio State when Ohio State ran in the touchdown at the 3 seconds left in the game. Notre Dame was hoping to avoid that this time. Duke was hoping to not even have to go there and win the game. But it wasn't Duke's luck. Even though they were home, unluckily, on their last drive to tie the game because the score was 21-14. They had about 2 minutes left, roughly 2 minutes left. And on the 4th down, they need to convert on the 4th down to continue the drive, to score. The quarterback gets injured and also makes an incomplete pass. Unfortunately, he gets injured, had to be carted off. Notre Dame defense in that drive makes the necessary stops needed. And unfortunately, Duke's quarterback gets hurt. Notre Dame's defense comes in clutch. Notre Dame, they get the ball near the out rest of the game. But that game looked like Duke had a chance of winning because they were leading 14-7. Notre Dame ties it. Back and forth. Notre Dame takes the lead. They took about 8 minutes of the last quarter to get the game-winning touchdown and leave only the 2 minutes for Duke. So it's unfortunate for Duke because of their quarterback getting hurt. See if he plays this week. I kind of doubt it. Look, he might be out for a couple weeks. And then Notre Dame just getting a very lucky close win. That's why I find it interesting that they moved on up to 10. I think, yes, they played very good, don't get me wrong. But moving up to 10, I think, but it's right only because of how Alabama and Oklahoma has been playing. I think that's the only place you could put Notre Dame right now is at 10. But they haven't been playing like a number 10 team, in my opinion. I think, Alabama's close to it, but they haven't exactly been playing like a number 10 team either. You could say Oklahoma because the way they've been destroying these teams, but like I said before, they haven't played really hard teams, so you can't put them there. It's hard. Duke got dropped down from 16 to 19, but understandable the way they lost. Very close, so, very good game by them. Now, the other game I'll talk about, Ole Miss to LSU. Very important game for both, and they both needed this win. LSU just not playing like I thought they were. I thought Brian Kelly and Jaden Daniels would be able to mesh together, run this offense, but they haven't been able to do like exponential things. They haven't really been able to put themselves out there like, yes, we're a good team. Now they're 3-2. I really thought they were going to have one or two losses this season. Looking back at it, LSU, yeah, only two losses. It was going to be to Alabama and Texas A&M. I had them beating Ole Miss, and but much like Mississippi State, who's proving me wrong because I thought they were going to be a much better team. They're not doing good at all. Ole Miss is proving me wrong that they're being a better team than I thought they were going to be. Jackson Dart, the quarterback, and everything's been flowing for this Rebels team. I really thought, it was a close game. Like I said, LSU had about 13, 15-point lead going into that fourth, and Ole Miss did not give up. They kept pushing. They were at home, so they didn't give up. They just kept going, kept fighting, kept pushing for it. It was a really good game. That was crazy. I honestly didn't think Ole Miss was gonna pull off the comeback. I thought LSU was gonna be able to close it out because their defense got about two, 3 and out. They forced 2 3 and outs by Ole Miss in the fourth quarter, but it just wasn't enough. And I look at Jane Downs. He was 27 for 36, 414 yards. He had 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's great. That is great. And that alone, those 4 touchdowns, the way he'd been playing, should have won you the game. Logan Diggs for LSU rushing 19 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels rushed in also for a touchdown after running for 99 yards with 15 carries. Right, the receivers: Brian Thomas, he had 3 touchdowns, 8 receptions, 124 yards. Malik Nabers, 8 receptions, 102 yards, no touchdowns. Right, and then Karen Lacey had a touchdown with 2 receptions, 51 yards. Right, so this alone, these stats alone, should have won you a game. Should have won you a game. Look, in the beginning, they were losing, right? The first quarter was 21-7 Ole Miss. Second quarter, LSU brings it back up, but it's just not enough yet. LSU scores 21, but Ole Miss scores 10. So they're keeping it's 28-31 at halftime, right? Ole Miss is leading it. But in the second half, LSU picks it up, scoring 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, bringing it to 14, right? So their score was 42. And then Ole Miss only got a field goal, cutting from the 31 to 34. So it was an 8-point game. LSU scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter, moving it to 49. That was the last touchdown. But Ole Miss just comes in and knowing they were down by 15, and they didn't give up at all. They kept pushing, they kept balling. It was crazy. I didn't think they were going to do it, but they were running the ball in. At one point, it was 49-47. LSU had the lead. The Rebels went for the 2-point conversion, timed the game. But even within that minute, Ole Miss was able to get the ball back and get the touchdown to win the game. At the end of it, it was crazy. Looking at the stats for Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, 26 for 39, 384 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interception, almost identical to Jaden Daniels. Quinton Judkins rushed 33 times, 177 yards, 1 touchdown. Ulysses Bentley, the fourth, 9 carries, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. Jackson Dart also ran for a touchdown. And then Trey Harris, 8 receptions, 153 yards for 1 touchdown. Jordan Watkins, 5 receptions, 103 yards for 1 touchdown. Dayton Wade, 7 receptions, 64 yards, but he also got a touchdown. And then Quinton Judkins also got a receiving touchdown. Quinshon Judkins also got a receiving touchdown. And he got 4. It was only a 4-yard touchdown. So it was a crazy game. We could look at those highlights, look at these games, the way Ole Miss was able to just find himself in that fourth quarter, get them back, knowing they're down by 15, clutching a game, 3 touchdowns to win by 6 at the end of it. Crazy game. Didn't think they were going to get it, even pulling out the 2-point conversion to tie the game. Right, and then get the 6 that they didn't kick the field goal. So, it was a really crazy game. Big win for Ole Miss, putting himself. Unbelievable. And then Kentucky makes a name for itself, beating number 22 Florida. Like, it wasn't even like too close of a game. No, it was just Kentucky beating Florida. Florida earning themselves the 22 spot going into the week, but Kentucky's like, nah, this is ours. This is ours. Florida was 3-1 going into that game, while Kentucky was 4-0. 1-0 the SEC. Florida was also 1-0 the SEC. Kentucky scored 16 in the first quarter, 7. Both teams scored 7 the second, 7 in the third. And then, like I said, Kentucky closed it off with 3 at the end. 33-14. Florida didn't look great at all, but they weren't too bad. Quarterback Mertz, he had one interception, which did hurt them, but he had 2 touchdowns, so it wasn't too much. They had no rushing touchdown. The leading the 2 running backs, Montrose Johnson Jr. had 10 carries and 42 yards, no touchdown. Trevor Etienne had 11 carries for 29 yards only. The receivers, their 2 receivers had touchdowns. Rick Pearsall, 3 receptions, 62 yards for 1 touchdown. And Jaden Hanson, 1 reception, 4-yard touchdown. That's all you really have. Now, on Kentucky side, Devin Leary leading this Kentucky team, going 5-0, 2-0 in the SEC. He only completed 9 out of 19 passes. He only threw for 69 yards on 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So that will help. But what really helped this Kentucky team, and we're seeing, is the run game. Florida's run defense, terrible. Florida run defense almost is not even there. Whether you could say it's the Kentucky O-line that's just phenomenal in creating these holes and being able to stop this D-line, or it's just Florida's D-line being so terrible, not even being able to tackle the run, not being able to cover these holes, not being able to do almost anything, just allowing these running backs to run through them. Ray Davis had a great game, 26 carries, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was pretty much the most, because backup running back Demi Sumo Kagabai had 4 carries, only 32 yards. For the receivers, it was a very slow, unnecessary day for the receivers. Baron Brown led the receivers with 4 receptions, 37 yards only. So, wasn't a big game for Kentucky's, wideouts, but the running backs, they took advantage of that bad Florida D line and the middle linebackers, and they just rushed through all of it. Another big game, crazy game it was on the Friday. Oregon State hosting Utah, coming in big when Utah was number 10, Oregon State was 19. Oregon State was coming off the loss to Washington State, while Utah was coming off from the win against UCLA. Utah coming in again. Now I'm realizing, because in the beginning episode of these episodes for college football, I said Utah was going to be in the Pac-12 championship game. Now I'm seeing that they're not. It's going to be Oregon against Washington, in my opinion. And the reason why I say Utah's not because of defense. And if you look at them, their offense is bad, but it's not because, well, how do I say this? Their offense is bad because they don't have their star quarterback. Cam Rising, beast quarterback. If you watched him last year, he had a phenomenal season. He carried the Utah team against USC twice, and in the second time in the Pac-12 championship, he carried them, even taking a major blow to the head. He carried him to get the win, and without Dalton Kincaid. Cam Rising is a baller. He's a dog. He's a beast. In the Pac-12, in the Rose Bowl game against Penn State, he tore his Achilles in the game, had to be taken out. Utah loses the game, right? He gets surgery in the offseason. He's in street clothes. He's traveling to games. He travels to games. He's there warming, not full warm up, but he's making throws. He's stretching. He's trying to do some of the warm ups with the team. He's there in workout clothes, and then as game time comes, he's back in street clothes. And now it brings up the point, after seeing how bad this loss was for Utah, because they played 2 quarterbacks and they both couldn't really do anything. But the second was worse than the first. And you really couldn't do anything. And even then, their second string quarterback, he got hurt towards the end of the game. It looks like a high ankle sprain, so he might not even be playing. They might be going to the third string. But at this point, when do you bring back Cam Rising? Because Cam Rising, he's one of those where it's like, a lot of times they say one player doesn't make that big of a difference. Not in this case. Cam Rising is that player. He's that one player that makes a big difference in this Utah team. You can't blame the receivers, because sometimes they're not even getting the ball. you can't blame the running backs because they're trying that the old line was not that great, or it's the Oregon State D line that was amazing. But looking at how Utah played against UCLA, and UCLA was able to stop that run game as well. I think it's the Utah O line that's not playing very good, right? Offensively, it's the O line not creating these gaps. So offensively, you can't you can't really do much. You don't really get the ball out to the receivers that much. The run is trying to get going, but it's the quarterback situation. It's literally the quarterback situation. And Cam Rising, he runs out the pocket. He continues, but he gets first downs if he needs to. He makes, he passes the ball. He's overall the function that Utah needs. So are they going to bring him back? Because if not, you have to start looking at the season like, okay, where do we stand in the Pac-12? Now, how are we going to look in the Big 12? Right? And if Cam Rising, I think Cam Rising, if he doesn't play the rest, it was kind of, you know, he's kind of just there because he's gonna, go to the NFL. Do you just use the last of Cam Rising in college before he goes to the NFL? Because I doubt he's gonna stay for another season. I don't think he can. Yeah, I don't think he can. But another season in Utah because of this injury, if it was him, I would just go to the NFL. See if a team's willing to let you, heal up, or if you're already healed up, you take the reins or get some snaps or whatever the situation is. Because Utah, Nate Johnson, who's the second, the backup quarterback who got the, I believe it's a high ankle injury. He completed 8 out of 23 passes. He threw for 101 yards, had one touchdown, no interceptions. Bryson Barnes, the third string quarterback who played 5 out of 8 attempts, he had 40 yards, one interception. Utah's rushing, Jalen Glover had 16 carries, 58 yards, no touchdown. No touchdown came from rushing. Other than that, you had Nate Johnson, the quarterback, who ran 9 times for only 3 yards total, 3 yards total. Bryson Barnes, the other quarterback, ran 4 times with negative 15 yards. He lost yards. The other running backs, Chris Curry, 2 carries for 5 yards. Shalom Vaki, 1 carry for 6 yards. It's not great because of the O line. Receiving, you don't get them the ball much. The most was Devon Lele, 4 receptions, 35 yards. Thomas Yasmin, 3 receptions, 59 yards. He has one touchdown. He had the only touchdown of the game, and that was in the fourth quarter. Now, Utah's defense, in my opinion, was good, but this Oregon State team just tore apart that secondary, tore them apart, and it didn't even look like it. Honestly, it didn't look like that secondary was getting torn apart, but they really did. They only had one receiving touchdown. It was by Silas Bolden. He had 6 receptions, 100 yards, one touchdown. Right. The other receivers, Josiah Irish had 3 receptions, 62 yards, and the next one 1 reception, 28 yards, 3 receptions, 22, 215. But it was the run. One Utah, in my case, like I said, they had a good defense. UCLA didn't test the secondary. They had the touchdown to score a passing one, right? Now Utah's, like I said, I think the rush defense wasn't that good, as good as I thought it would have been. Oregon State rushed through that. I knew that. Oregon State, Damian Martin had 16 rushes, 64 yards, so they kept them well, but it was one touchdown. Silas Bolden, 2 carries, 53 yards, one rushing touchdown. So he had 2 touchdowns total, receiving and a rushing touchdown. DJ Ukulele, the quarterback of Oregon State, had 6 carries for 18 yards rushing. DJ Ukulele completed 14 out of 25 attempts, 204 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Okay, so the Utah secondary got the interception. They only allowed one passing touchdown, but it didn't look as great. And then they used backup quarterback Aiden Chillis for one play. He went 1 for 1, 23 yards. That's all. Oregon State looks great. DJ Ukulele looks amazing after his stint in Clemson, and how they're kind of blaming him for Clemson doing bad. And now they're showing Clemson is bad themselves. And DJ Ukulele is playing great in Oregon State, and helping out this team that they're fighting for a Pac-12 championship spot. They're fighting their way there. They're 1-1 in the conference. It's still time. 4-1 overall. They lost to Washington State, who I think I didn't think was going to be this good compared to them. I didn't think Washington State was going to be this good. So very interesting. But I think it was a big game. If we watched the game really just the eye test, Oregon State was just much more dominant. And offensively, I think it didn't really matter looking at Utah's defense because we've seen how they played. Utah's more known for the defense, but the big issue was Oregon State defense just putting that pressure on Utah's offense. Nate Johnson, so many times he had to run outside the pocket. Even when he was injured, he didn't want to walk it. He didn't want to get out. It was, the last minutes of the fourth quarter when this happened. He didn't want to get out, so he was running outside the pocket, trying to keep plays alive. They turned it over on downs because they were unable to complete the passes, unable to get the first downs. But this Oregon State defense knew to keep the pressure on them, and they did. So now Utah has to realize: are they want to continue like this with Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson can't play, or are they going to finally tell, hey, Cam Rising, you need to dress up for this next game. We need you to play because although they have the same record, it looked two completely different teams. So they need to realize, hey, we're gonna need you to play. But yeah, to point out that's kind of the end of that one. To point out other big games, Texas, Kansas. I mean, Kansas getting to the top 25 just to be taken out by Texas. Texas just playing great. I don't like Texas personally, but they have been playing great. Quinn Ewers been amazing, 25 for 35, 225 yards, one touchdown, one interception. That's all right in this game. Jonathan Brooks, the running back, now the leading running back after Bijan Robinson and Johnson left. 21 carries, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. CJ Baxter, 15 carries, 64 yards. And then Quinn Ewers himself, he ran in for 2 touchdowns. He had 7 carries, 40 yards, ran in for 2 touchdowns. So he only had 1 passing touchdown. Passing touchdown was to Adonai Mitchell, 10 receptions, 141 yards, 1 touchdown. Xavier Worthy, who I think is the wide receiver, should be the wide receiver one for Texas, but seeing how he was last year too. 7 receptions, 93 yards. Looking at Kansas, I mean, Jason Bean, he went 9 for 21, 136 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Devin Neal, 8 carries, 45 yards. That was the best out of the running backs. Jason Bean also ran 7 times for 42 yards. They had 1 rushing touchdown. That was by Daniel Hishaw Jr., 8 carries, 44 yards to 1 touchdown. The touchdown reception was Trevor Wilson. Had one catch. It was the only catch of the game, 58 yards, the 1 touchdown. So, like I said, Kansas is more of a basketball school than a football school. But let's see if we ever see them back in the top 25 again. Who knows? But yeah, that's some of the more bigger games in my opinion. Alabama getting the big one against Mississippi State. Finally, just getting the job done, doing what needs to be done, not letting Mississippi State come back in this. Jalen Milroe, they went back with him pretty much. He threw 10 for 12 for 164 yards, no touchdown, no interception. But he did run in for 2 touchdowns because he ran for 11 times for 69 yards, running 2 touchdowns. Chase McClellan ran 15 times, 63 yards with 1 touchdown only. And the rest were field goals. And he had 3 touchdowns in the game for Alabama. For Mississippi State, Will Rogers, he had a bad game. 1 touchdown for 3 interceptions, threw 107 yards for 15 on 27. 1 rushing touchdown by Mike Wright, 3 carries, 19 yards. And then receiving touchdown by Jeffrey Pittman. He had 2 receptions, 23 yards, the 1 touchdown. But Mississippi State, like I said, not be the team that I thought they would be. So, coming into the end, looking at the games this week, week 6 for the top 25 teams. So this week, to start off week 6, 9 a.m. on ABC, the Red River game, Oklahoma going to Texas to face Texas. Something else what I think we've seen is Dillon Gabriel, how he's been playing for this Oklahoma team. Coming from UCF, he first committed, UCLA decommitted before the season started and decided to go to Oklahoma. And, last season, Didn't look too great, but this season he's been showing out a lot more. Just get the game against Iowa State, he went 26 for 39, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. But he ran in for 2 touchdowns with 8 carries, 37 yards. Sorry. Marcus Major, the running back, had 19 carries for 66 yards, and then 3 passing touchdowns. The 3 passing touchdowns were Nick Anderson, 2 receptions, 56 yards, 1 touchdown. Jaden Gibson, 2 receptions, 50 yards, touchdown. And Drake Stoops, 5 receptions, 32 yards, 1 touchdown. The leading receiver, though, Jalil Farouk, 5 receptions, 81 yards, no touchdown, but still wasn't too bad. Iowa State on the other side. Rocco Bennett had 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 188 passing yards. I think that points out to Oklahoma's defense, and now they're finally going to be tested against a really good Texas team. How's Oklahoma's defense going to be able to handle it? Because Texas defense has been good, but I don't think they've been phenomenal. Is what I think to say. So I think Oklahoma offense could keep up with this Texas defense. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I think they could keep up with it. I think Oklahoma could get at least 2-3 touchdowns. It's going to be how can Oklahoma defense contain this Texas offense. Okay, I think this Texas offense could get maybe four touchdowns. I think at the end of it, Texas are going to win it. In my opinion, it's going to be about a touchdown, within a touchdown. I think that's how much they're going to win it by. In my opinion, I just think the Texas offense is much better than the Oklahoma defense, because like Oklahoma's keeping at these other teams at 20, got 2 interceptions but allowed 2 passing touchdowns. No rushing touchdowns, so the rushing being able to stop it, but no passing touchdowns. They've been allowing passing touchdowns. So we're gonna really see how this game goes on, how Texas is gonna be able, show where Oklahoma really stands. It's a Big 12 game, so very important. So that's starting off week 6. Number 4, Ohio State is hosting Maryland. You can see that, and that one's also at 9 a.m. Number 21, Missouri is hosting number 23, LSU. LSU trying to get a bounce back game. They're trying to hopefully try to get another win. Try to go 3-1 in the SEC and 4-2 overall. Missouri trying to keep undefeated. They're hoping to go 6-0 overall with a 2-0 in the SEC. My UCLA is hosting this Saturday, number 13, Washington State. It's going to be a really hard game. It's going to be a really hard game, honestly. UCLA has no secondary, like I said. If Washington State's main thing is running the ball, UCLA's front four should be able to handle that. But if it comes to passing, they have no secondary. And UCLA is going to have to, one, of course, they're going to run the ball a lot. That's Chip Kelly loves to do, is just run the ball. Carson Steele is going to get a lot of touches. So is TJ Harding. But the main issue is, can Dante Moore pick himself back up after that Utah game? Is he going to be able to go against Washington State defense? The defense that I think has been pretty well this game. I don't think they were as good as how Utah's defense was against UCLA, but I think they're close enough. So Dante Moore has to be ready for another tough defense matchup. Now, Washington State doesn't have the best defense in Pac-12, not at all. I think it's Utah. When it comes compared to the games, Utah and Washington State's here. But if Dante Moore could break through that and find the rhythm, I think UCLA has a chance. But it's a really close game. This one's one where, although prior I had UCLA beating Washington in the first video, I think this one, now how things have been going on, Washington State would probably win this one. But, hopefully let's see. Number 5, Florida State hosting Virginia Tech. Should be an easy win for Florida State. Number 11, Alabama's going to Texas, to Kyle Field in College Station in Texas against Texas A&M. Again, Texas A&M is a team that loves to beat the hard teams, but loses to the easy ones in the SEC. So let's see how Texas gives Alabama a run for the money, how Alabama struggles or just overall dominates like they did against Mississippi State. I think they need to play the way they play against Mississippi State, need to play the exact same way against Texas A&M. Number 14, North Carolina, ACC game. They're hosting Syracuse. Syracuse is going 4-1 overall with only 1 loss in the ACC so far. North Carolina is going 4-0 with only 1 win in the ACC. It's going to be in Chapel Hill, so North Carolina try to continue their undefeated streak. Number 1, Georgia is hosting number 20, Kentucky. Unlucky for Kentucky. Lucky enough, they would get into the top 25 even after they're being undefeated 5-0, 2-0 the SEC. Georgia also 5-0, 2-0 SEC. Like I talked about in the last episode, a lot of people are complaining that Georgia and Michigan have played super easy teams in the non-conference games and in the beginning. That's why they always get 1 and 2, and they shouldn't be number 1 and 2 because they play easy teams. Well, now Georgia gets a top 20 team. I know it is number 20. It's not much harder, but it is a team. It's an SEC game, so it's very important as well. So this game's in Athens, Georgia. Georgia's going to be hosting. I think it's going to be a Georgia win, but let's see. Kentucky's not a team to be back down this season. Number 2, Michigan's going over to Minnesota for a Big Ten game. Minnesota's 3-2 overall with the 1-1 record in the Big Ten. Michigan's looking to continue their undefeated streak. Number 10, Number 10, Notre Dame is going to Louisville, Kentucky to play against Louisville. Louisville number 25 in the conference. Both Louisville's undefeated 5-0. Notre Dame is 5-1. Notre Dame's looking to add to their 6, while Louisville's also looking to add to a 6th win. Number 16, Ole Miss is hosting Arkansas SEC game. Arkansas is 0-2 the SEC, while Ole Miss is 1-1. Overall, Arkansas is 2-3. They're not doing too good, especially in this tough SEC. So it's understandable, but it's not looking too good. While Ole Miss is 4-1. Number 17, Miami is hosting Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, again, not one of the known, especially not the best team in Georgia, but they're also a team you can't just look past. This is Miami's first ACC game while they're 4-0 overall. While this is Georgia Tech's third ACC game, they're 1-1 with 2-3 overall. Number 24, Fresno State is going to Wyoming to play Wyoming. Wyoming right now is 4-1 overall with 1-0 in the Mountain West, while Fresno State's 5-0 overall, 1-0 in the Mountain West. Fresno State's looking very good in this conference, so I think they're going to be the ones to win it. Number 15, Oregon State is coming down to California, but not to Southern California. They're going down to Northern California to go against Berkeley. Berkeley right now is 3-2 overall, 1-1 in the Pac-12, while Oregon State is 4-1 overall with also 1-1 in the Pac-12. I have Oregon State winning this one. Yeah, Oregon State just looks great all around. Berkeley has never been one of the best football schools. Them and Stanford are the bottom two. So the way Oregon State's been playing, it's going to be a very dominant, high-scoring game for Oregon State, low-scoring game for Berkeley. It's going to be a good game for Oregon State's defense. And the last top 25 game, Arizona is coming to Southern California to play number 9 USC. USC is hoping to go 4-0 in the Pac-12, 6-0 overall. Arizona is 3-2 overall with the 1-1 in the Pac-12. Arizona's not looking too bad. In my opinion, Arizona was better than Arizona State, and the way Arizona State, gave USC a little run, a little tough, kept up with them in the first half, even up to the third quarter. I think Arizona would be able to do the same, just keep the game a little closer. And the way things are looking, even with USC win, if they allow so many points by Arizona to be scored, USC may be dropping to 10. In order for USC to even stay 9 or move up to 8, their defense has to step up and keep Arizona at minimum to 1 touchdown. I think that's the only way. That's the only way USC stays at 9 or moves up to 8. Also, depending on well, it doesn't really matter because Oregon and Washington have their bye week, so that doesn't really matter. But just if they want to stay there, their defense has to step it up. So yeah, guys, that's the top 25 for week 6. We'll have more for next week as well, another episode going on. But for right now, that's week 6. This is Sideline Thoughts. I'm Joe Galvez. See you next time.